Well, good evening. Hi there. I'm there somewhere. Welcome to another Central. Oh, there we are. I guess some of our viewers would like to see the pictures instead. But welcome once again to another scintillating episode of Porch Talk. I, of course, am Paul W. Marino, and this unfortunate clot next to me is Eugene Michaelenko.
Good evening.
Eugene, thank you for coming tonight.
It's my pleasure.
Oh, good. If you didn't come, I was going to have to swear, oh, cacciatore antipasto. Fortunately, I didn't have to do that, so I didn't actually swear in front of you. So let's take a look, before we do anything else, at the photo behind us, which is going to be in front of us. There we go.
Thank you.
Now, this is a photo taken in a certain place. I am willing to accept any one of three possible answers. One question is, who were these people? Two, where was the photo taken? And three, when was it taken? If you have visited my website, in the right place anyway, you should know the answer to this. If you are from North Adams and are my age, actually our age, we're about the same age, you should be able to guess. And please do call in with a guess, even if it's just a wild guess. Thank you. And Joanne, would you please put us in front again? Oh, well done, Joanne.
Thank you, Joanne.
Applaud. Okay. So, I understand that last week you had to go to the lion's den. Did you have to feed the lions or something?
Yeah, they fed on me. No, actually, I was at a wine and beer tasting event there at the County Fair. The Adams Lions Club do it every year, and I was there pouring a. Let's see, what was I pouring? I think a Sauvignon Blanc, and serving I think some kind of peppers or pepper steak or something.
Mm-hmm. So you only got to taste one wine.
No, I went around and I tasted them all. I didn't taste the beers though, but I should have. Now, there were only 2 beers or 3 beers while there were like 6 wines. So, anyhow.
Did you have to whine?
With my cheese, yes.
Oh, this is good. Could I have some more, please?
No, you didn't give me enough.
So, this week, I believe you brought with you pictures from Arnold Printworks, not just Arnold Printworks in general, but the Jones division.
Yes, the Jones division.
All right, so let's put the first one up.
See,
Here we are.
Here we are.
Ooh, and I see you're going to be doing something on the 28th, talking about Dr. Jones.
Well, I'm not talking about him. Dr. Jones's grandson has published a large coffee table book about Dr. Jones and the family. Mm-hmm. And the Adams Historical Society's annual meeting will be at the Adams Free Library in the Memorial Hall. And Mr. Trudell is his name, Sam Trudell. He was named after his grandfather. Will be making this presentation about this man and how he was the man who brought Arnold Printworks to Adams. And you see on the left here are examples of the printed material, the printed cloth, and then down the bottom is people may recognize Hank Kennedy. He was the sort of the head of the printing department at roller print at Arnold Printworks in Adams. We know that the Arnold Printworks, the North Adams, goes back to what, 1868, and I believe it was one of the largest textile printing operations in the world.
Printing and dyeing operations in the world. They had an office in New York City and another in Paris.
Paris, yes. So they're international. But they somehow got to Adams, and people only think Arnold Printworks was in Adams, and I said, no, it started in North Adams. It was big in North Adams. It was little in Adams. This is building the Renfrew mill that Arnold Printworks later moved into. This is an old stereopticon taken about, it's got to be like 1869. That's how old this picture is. And the building is still under construction, and those must all be construction laborers. You see scaffoldings around the central tower.
Yeah, that's something that always amazes me about early factories, was that they were not, well, they were very utilitarian on the inside, but on the outside, they always, let's see, no, it's not going to show the mouse, but up here along the eave, you can see, no, stop doing that.
Those screens, yeah.
Yeah, but you can see a frieze there, done with the bricks, and the lintels over the windows.
They were beautiful.
Yes, and of course that tower, it had, well, I can tell just by this photo that it had a spectacular slate roof. Not only that it curved, but there was a lot of texture in the bricks and different types and different colors and so on.
I wish we could see this in color, but
Oh,
they
yes.
didn't take pictures in color in those days. But you'll see it finished later on in the show. I just threw in Jimmy Renfrew. He's one of the principals in the business. The business wasn't named after him. It was technically named after Renfrewshire, a county in Scotland where most of the workers and immigrants who immigrated to the States came from. He was part of a trio, him, Jimmy Chalmers, who was his cousin, and L.L. Brown was the money man. He was the man who funded the whole operation to get it started. And he was famous for his paper mill in Adams.
Had a bunch of them.
And this is the weave shed in that room. I just, I'm amazed at how big it is and how filled it is with looms. I don't see these look like they were probably already operated by electricity. Can't be. There's got to be some kind of mechanism, belts.
Yeah, they had electricity
Belts.
at the time that.
Well, this has got to be turn of the century, though.
Well, at the turn of the century, they did have electricity.
Because those lights are there. Those lights look like they're electric lights, or maybe they're. Anyhow, the looms are kind of short, though. I expect them to be wider, but maybe not.
Yeah. Well, of course, they were wider in North Adams.
Yeah.
In the Eclipse mill, they went all the way across the room.
Yeah, This must have been early technology.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. This is a carding machine. I love how there's just a row of them, going out into infinity. But this is the early stages of weaving, where they took the raw cotton and made it into, cleaned it up, got rid of the seeds, and got it ready to be
Yeah,
spinned.
I believe the carding, well, the way it was done with wool was they'd take a ball of wool and work it between two paddles that had sharp points on them, something like Velcro, and that would separate it into the
It
threads.
would comb it, wouldn't it? We'd
Yeah.
sort of comb it like we would
And
comb,
then
like we
you
comb our
send the
beards.
threads somewhere else to be spun into thread, and then somewhere else to be woven into cloth. So I expect they had a similar method here.
This is taken from our 1882 bird's eye map. I colorized it, but you can see that, there's the brick row houses that you see on Route 8. There's still, half of them are still there. The factory, to the right, you see the weave shed that we just saw the interior of, and the mill pond. That was our last mill pond in Adams. Adams at one time had 7 mill ponds, and this one was filled in with the when they were remodeling or enlarging C.T. Plunkett School on Commercial Street. They had to make a bigger playground to comply with federal standards. So they had to.
They should have kept it. They could have had a pool.
Well, they took the Hospital Hill and filled in this pond. And you can still see part of Burt Street there sticking up out of Renfrew. And Renfrew is our last industrial village. Last time we talked about factories, we had industries up and down Route 8 in the Hoosick River. And this was by far our biggest. And those row houses are transplants from Scotland and northern Great Britain, where they built long row houses to house the workers. And here's the finished product of the Renfrew Manufacturing Company. Can you see the Renfrew made out in bricks on the smokestack?
Oh, yes.
That was cool. I remember when they tore it down, I was so sad. I wish they would have kept it, that one monument to Renfrew. But it was pretty filthy. Burning coal pretty much dirtied
Oh,
it.
yes.
And in the background, you see that field to the right. That was the old Renfrew field before the Renfrew field that we have today. There was a football and baseball field. I think you could barely see the diamond up to the right-hand corner.
Yeah, I do see that.
There was a man, John Gross, who played in that field. He was born in 1910. And he told me he sort of imagined that the home plate was right where the sign is for Shine Wire off of Printworks Drive. So if you're ever on Printworks Drive and you see the sign for Shine Wire, that's where home plate was.
Cool. Any of these buildings in the background still there?
No, in the foreground though they are. The background, that all went up, burnt in we'll see the fire. Back in 1984, that whole place went up in flames. But the building on the right, no.
Yeah, the brick building on the right.
No,
Foreground?
that got moved. That became the office. If anybody remembers how the office was, so it was moved to the left. About, I don't know how many. It's a big difference. I don't know how I moved that brick building. But the building in the front and the center is the train station, is the train, Renfrew train stop. And that's still there. Burke Construction took it and added a second story to it and restored it. It's beautiful, what job he did. And now he sold it. I don't know who bought it, but someone else now owns it. And this is Renfrew, the row houses. You see the house, if you go from the left, you see the mill pond.
Yeah.
And you see the row of elm trees. There was something like, 200 elm trees in Adams at one time. And the whole street was lined with elm trees. But of course, Dutch elm disease killed all of them. Then come the row houses. And then after that, those row of huts, I'm assuming, are the woodshed. I don't think people were storing their lawn furniture in there. I'm assuming that's where they kept things like, wood for sure, to burn in their stoves. And then the next row after that, I think, are outhouses. Don't they look like an outhouse with those?
Yes,
in
they
the back?
do. They
So
must
take-
have been two-holers.
Yes.
Well,
Two
you
ho-
know, the church where my brother Ralph was married, I was 9 years old, so don't get after me for being so disinterested in the wedding. The church actually had a four-holer outhouse,
Oh my God.
2 on the men's side, 2 on the women's side. And that's what I especially remember about that wedding.
I don't think I've ever been in a two-seater outhouse. But then right behind that is the Pine Street Brook. So I can. I'm not sure where they got this picture. Must predate sewers, or they kept the outhouses after they got sewers. The whole sewer system, but take you out to the woodshed at the outhouse. Here's Mr. Sam Jones, Dr. Sam Jones, who grew up on River Street here in North Adams.
Very dapper-looking man.
Yes, this picture was taken in 1928, and this is the year that he moved. He took brought Arnold Printworks to Adams and became the Jones division. He's incredible. He must have been very smart. He graduated out of Drury in 1905. He was married the November after he graduated to William Arthur Gallup's daughter, Dorothy. And then he sent them off to Europe to study chemistry in Germany. And after he got his degrees over there, he actually worked in Russia. And he left Russia just around the time of the beginning of World War I. I don't think he wanted to stay around for the revolution and all that excitement.
Smart move.
And he came back to North Adams to work in Arnold Printworks. But Mr. Trudell, his grandson, is going to give a lecture and talk about him and his life Sunday, April 28th at the Adams Free Library in the Memorial Hall.
Sounds good. I think I'd like to go to that. So where did Dr. Jones end up?
In Williamstown. I can't think of his address there. I've been on the road, I've been by the place, but I don't know what that road name is. Very big house, sort of.
Oh, well, he wound up in Williamstown.
Right, and he died there as well.
And he's buried in either East Lawn or West Lawn.
Maybe he's here on. He can't be on Hillside. Where's William Arthur Gallup buried? Southview.
Yeah, no, they're in Hillside, but there's not enough room there. He had several children who died young, and he had a son who lived to adulthood with Florence Houghton, who was his second wife.
Yeah.
They had several children who died young, but they did have a son who lived to adulthood, and his descendants still own William Arthur Gallup's summer home in Clarksburg.
Oh, which was called Mayunsuk or something like.
Yeah, something
Mayunsuk
like
Farm. Yeah. So how come Jones got to inherit the business or took over the business? I didn't. Where the son was not interested.
Well,
'Cause
no,
he-
the son was too young.
Oh, because they definitely groomed him to take over the business.
George B. Flood was working for the company, but I believe Dr. Jones was the one who was old enough.
So it's only age.
Yes.
And this is their basic, the big production machine. This is the roller print. And I believe in Adams alone they had like 10 or 12 of them, but I'm sure the old Arnold Printworks had many more.
Oh, yes.
But this could print something like 12 colors at once. Amazing machine. And and the, registering all that color and keeping track of the color quality and the color. It must have been quite the operation, and that took lots of skill to make this all happen.
Boy, I'll say. Here's a color photo.
Yep, and this is, I chose this because it's a color. You can see that, and look at the fabric they were printing. They had some outrageous prints, the fashion. And look at the colors, look at the pots of dye that were made, were used. I'm sure it was noisy and hot and smelly, but they turned out some beautiful, amazing pieces of textile printing.
Looks like hand painting.
I think these are etchers. I should know.
That could be.
Someone told me these women look like they're twins, but maybe they're just dressed alike. And I believe
No, they're not dressed alike, but I can see a lot of likeness in the faces.
Yeah. This is from an album that we got before the Honor Printworks burned. They let us go into their basement of the main office and to just scavenge around and take anything we wanted. And this was one of them, a book filled with pictures taken in, it looks like the early 40s, maybe the late 30s. And this was one of them. And these are the copper rollers that they would etch in so that then they would be, this is what they printed with. Big floral pattern here, and this is probably just one color. There's probably 10 or 12
I
of these.
recall hearing that when Sprague is moving out of the Marshall Street complex, there was a huge stack of glass plate negatives that dated all the way back to Arnold Print.
Oh.
And by the time someone went to get them, someone else had smashed all of them.
Ugh. Too bad. And this is the whole place built out. I don't think they built. This is the side that burnt. Yeah, I don't think there's any more buildings because the finishing room I think was one of the last. So that's in the upper center there. But the original mill is in front, and then the weave shed is to the left, and then the finishing room is to the right. And I believe that was the print room later on, the weave shed. And you can see the water, the mill pond, going into where they did have turbines. They had water turbines, but they also burnt coals. You can see the smokestacks. This must predate when people came by car, because I don't see any cars nor a parking lot.
Yeah, everybody walked to work.
But still, it's with a plane. Oh, they printed paintings by Grandma Moses. That's Grandma Moses inspecting their work. I don't know if they did 2 or 3 of her paintings that they made into drapery material. My mother made 3 sets of draperies for our living room out of the Grandma Moses print. And you're going to see it after this slide. But Grandma Moses came to Adams to visit, to see the mill.
When I go to visit my brother, I go past her farm.
Oh.
And for that matter, I go past the cemetery where she's buried.
A great American primitive artist.
Amen.
And this is the print the draperies that were in our living room for several years. I believe this is called the Homecoming, I believe. You see there's a wagon filled with people and someone there at the door greeting them.
And there's someone in the middle running away.
No, they're afraid they're going to be trampled. But she had an interesting palette. I mean, her sky, I'm not sure if it was having that aqua color, uh, but the bright yellows and greens and reds. So.
Yeah, one of her paintings I'd like to see again was titled On the North Adams Road.
Oh, yeah, I would like to see that too. But there's another aerial shot taken in the 50s. So you see there's a parking lot now, and you can still look down the valley, which I just like that whole thing where you can see, looks at the center of Adams and the hills beyond. And Renfrew Field is all built out. You can see it to the right. There's the community center that the Renfrew built, but then here it's probably Jim Pieri's car dealership. And then it was the VFW hall for a period of time. And then it became the Berkshire Berkshire Metal Spinning, which is now Brookmatics in North Adams. And this place burnt in 1980 something or other. And that's when Brookmatics moved out of Adams.
And I see they still have the mill pond.
Yep, still there. It was there when I was a child. I grew up in Renfrew. This is my little neighborhood.
Did you go swimming in it?
No, it was a little sketchy. And this is John Haynes Spencer, who was the general manager, the superintendent of the mill during probably after the 40s, after it was Jones Division. And he would have been, after the Jones Division went out, Aspenook and Indian Head Mill ran it, and I believe he was the boss at the time. And some of your viewers might remember or have a recollection of him, but I don't know, those people are probably dead by now. He had a son who was a pretty popular teacher at Monument Mountain High School. He's passed also.
And that pattern he's holding looks rather like the Grandma Moses picture.
Oh, it does, doesn't it? Yeah. With the trees and... And this is Dale Vanderboort. This is the last owner of the Arnold Printworks. He bought it from, they called themselves the Arnold Printworks, and I think he also kept the name Arnold Printworks. It became Arnold Printworks in Adams when Aspenook or Indian Head was going to sell it and close the mill. And a bunch of businessmen in Adams, I'll tell them, it was Mervyn Weinberg, Ed Ginsberg, and J. Norman O'Connor of Donovan and O'Connor, got together, investors, to keep the place open, and then they went and tapped the federal government. Teddy Kennedy came here and gave them a big check to help them keep the mill open.
Now, when you say he gave them a big check, was this the type that you could cash, or was it a tall person from Czechoslovakia?
No, it was a big check that was like 4. That was like 4 feet by 3 feet tall. It was that kind of big check.
Ah, I see. Okay. Go ahead and hit me. You know you want to. Ah!
And this is Lou Iaquesa. Some people have memories of him. He was also a main man in that mill. I can't think if he was running the printing department or if he was running, I don't know what his job was. But I know so many people who worked at the mill and remembered Mr. Iaquesa.
Well, it's obvious he didn't buy his shirts there.
Why?
Well, it's plain white.
Right. Not too many people wear drapery material in their shirts.
Ah! Oh! Ah! Have to be more careful with my jokes.
And they threw in roller print started becoming old hat, and this was a new technology of screen printing. And these are all these people with monitoring the screen printing operation. So I don't know how, if all these, I think all this machinery went up in smoke. I don't know if any of it got out of the mill before it burnt.
Yeah, and I believe that screen printing is now passé.
Oh, is it? How do they print? What do they
Well, from computer, I should think.
Really? Yeah, a toner? Wow.
Well, I do remember when
sure it's-
Hunter Machine Company was still running. I saw a machine that they had invented, and you had 2 layers of cloth. One is a synthetic cloth, and the other is like a nylon cover, and it goes through a roller that welds the 2 of them together at various places in a pattern.
Oh.
Just a moment.
And this is the big fire. It was November 28th, 1984, so it's coming up on the 40th anniversary? Mm-hmm. 40 years, 4 decades. This was the biggest fire in Adams, but thank God nobody was hurt, nobody was left homeless, but...
Where are all the people roasting weenies and marshmallows?
they were standing back because the flames were so hot. They had them on a long, long, long stick.
Ah, okay.
You got too close to that fire. Chief Chittenden told me about how in the back there was this one spot where he said it was actually what they called a fire hurricane, where the power of the fire created its own swooping wind of fire rotating. Mm-hmm. And he said the Cheshire Fire Department was back there, and he ordered them. He says, "Leave. You got to get out of there. Just let it burn." Basically, the only thing they could save was the original mill. They kept on pouring water on it, and that original mill was still saved, the 1868 mill. And then the industrial park development people who later on owned it just let it rot there, and by 1996, it was just in such bad shape they finally tore it down.
Well, I'm reminded of when the Eagle Mill on Eagle Street, burned down. And there was a gas station across the street where Domino's is now.
Right.
And their ad was Red Ball Service, whatever that means. And they had this big plastic red ball on a post. And from across the street, the fire melted
Wow.
1/2 of the ball. So they had red semisphere
Service.
yeah.
And one more fire picture. You can see that the perspective here. There's little humans in the size of the fire. Mm-hmm. Even I think they're standing on this side of the river, and I'm looking across the river. I think they're at the edge of the Hoosic there.
Yeah, that is spectacular.
I slept through it. I think it was a night. It was like a Friday night, I believe, and I was out visiting water holes, and I think I probably went to bed. I remember I think I had breakfast at the Texan early in the morning and went home, and it must have just started after I went to bed. And I slept. I woke up around 11 o'clock, and I went to my print shop. My cousin was there, and he said, "Oh, that was quite the fire, wasn't it?" I'm like, "What fire?" And then he told me, and I ran over there to see this smoldering mass of Well, that's my show. That's my pictures of
That's
our
wonderful.
works and
Now, a little reminder for you. How are we doing for time? Well, we're almost at 20 minutes. If you're tired of listening to the two of us babbling on here, please give us a call at 664-4408. Or if you'd like to take a stab at the photo, not literally, of course, please give us a call at 664-4408. Now, before the show, we were talking about the story that I told the children at the North Adams Public Library. And I told it again today to the Northern Berkshire retirees. And hey, let's do it here. Who knows? Maybe the Adams Free Library would like to have me come in and entertain their children with it.
I'll bring it up to the board of directors there. The
Way
board
to
of
go.
trustees.
Yeah. So, this story was originally written for two little girls I used to know in Stockbridge. Of course, I'm pretty sure they're all grown up now. And it's titled The Problem Child. And I'm going to make it about Nicole. As I said to you before the show, I'm pretty sure she's not watching, so I'm pretty sure I'll be able to get away with it, as long as someone in the control room doesn't have a big mouth about it. The story, as I said, is The Problem Child. Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Nicole who drove her parents crazy. It's not that she was a bad girl. No, no. Indeed, she was strangely well behaved for a little girl. The problem was she was funny looking. She looked just like her daddy. Her eyes were the same color as his. Her hair was the same color as his. Even her beard was the exact same color as his. Now, you know, it's very unusual for a little girl to have a beard. And Nicole's mommy and daddy were very worried about it. I'm very worried about this, her mommy often said. And they wondered how this could have happened, especially to such a good little girl as Nicole. I wonder how this could have happened, her daddy often said. Especially to such a good little girl as Nicole. One day, Nicole's mommy and daddy took her to the doctor to see if he knew what to do about it. But he didn't know what to do about it. I'm afraid I don't know what to do about this, the doctor said in his strange German accent. Have you considered putting a paper bag over her head? Oh, and Nicole's daddy thought that was a great idea, until her mommy informed him it was a terrible idea. That's a terrible idea, she said. Oh, yes, you're right, my love, he agreed quickly, as all good daddies do. It's a terrible idea. And he looked at Nicole and sighed unhappily. One day, Nicole's mommy and daddy took her to visit her grandma, the one that was her mommy's mommy. Mom, Nicole's mommy said, I don't mind that Nicole looks like her daddy. I really don't. I just wish she didn't look quite so much like him. Oh, it's nothing to worry about, the grandma said, You had the same problem when you were a little girl. Nicole, come and sit on this stool for Grammy. And Nicole went and sat on the stool for her Grammy. And her grandmother took hold of her hair and said, "Hold still." And she began pulling the hair as hard, excuse me, as she could. And Nicole screeched, "Ouch! Ouch! Each!" And her grandmother said, "Oh, the first few pulls are always the hardest," and kept right on pulling. And Nicole went right on ouch, ouch, eaching. But then a wonderful thing happened. The more that her grandma pulled her hair, the longer it got. Yes, and the longer her hair got, the shorter her beard got. Yes, and then her cheeks made a little sound like a pop, and they were smooth and pink like a little girl's cheeks ought to be, and her hair was long and shining like a little girl's hair ought to be. But her mommy was not pleased, and she cried, "What is that funny-looking thing in the middle of her face?" And her Grammy looked at it and said, "Oh, that's her nose, dear." "Her nose? It looks more like a cucumber. It's even green." "Well, yes, it does, but it's her nose all the same." "Oh, what with the beard? I never noticed it before. What do we do about it?" And the grandma said, "I don't know, dear. You never had this problem when you were a little girl. Have you considered putting a paper bag over her head?" And the grandma produced a paper bag that was just the right size, and oh, Nicole's daddy thought that was a great idea, until her mommy reminded him that it was a terrible idea. "That's a terrible idea," she said. "Oh, yes, you're right, my love," he agreed quickly, as all smart daddies do. It's a terrible idea." And he looked at Nicole and sighed unhappily. As they were driving home, this is Nicole's daddy driving home. As they were driving home, Nicole's daddy said, "I have an idea. Why don't we take her to visit my mom? Your mom knew what to do about her beard. Maybe mine will know what to do about her nose." So that's what they did. They went to visit Nicole's other grandma, the one that was her daddy's mommy. "Mom," Nicole's daddy said, you may not have noticed it before, but Nicole's nose looks like a cucumber. It's even green." And Nicole's grandma said, "Oh, I noticed it all along. It just didn't bother me. You had the same problem when you were a little boy. Nicole, come and sit on this stool for Grammy." And Nicole went and sat on the stool and held onto her hair with both hands. Boy, pardon. And her grandmother took hold of her ears and said, "Hold still." And she began cranking the ears backwards as hard as she could. And Nicole screeched, "Each, ouch, ouch." And her Grammy said, "Oh, the first few turns are always the hardest," and kept right on turning the ears backwards. And Nicole went right on each, ooch, ouching. But then a wonderful thing happened. The more her grandma turned her ears backwards, the shorter Nicole's nose got. Yes! And then her Grammy started turning one ear and then the other, one ear and then the other, until Nicole's nose was exactly the right length. Of course, now one of her ears was upside down and the other was lying flat, but her daddy's ears looked like that too. So it was nothing to make a fuss over. And Nicole's daddy said, it looks a lot better, Mom, but it's still green. Oh, tish tosh, said the grandma. Just slap a little paint on it and she'll be fine. And that just goes to show that grandmas always know best. The end.
What a presentation.
Yeah.
What a
and,
story. Did you?
You need a little touch up around the edges.
Did you like your grandmothers? Did you have a good
yes.
You had...
Well, I did not know my Italian grandparents. They died long before my parents even met.
Oh.
But I did like my Welsh grandma and grandpa.
Let's see, my grandfathers were dead before I was born. In fact, one night my grandfather died a year and a month before I was born. And the other one died back in 1943, so.
Sounds like he was in a hurry not to know you.
I think he had other things he was intending to, you know. He's like, I got to hurry up and do this so I can die young.
Yes, excellent idea. Excellent point, I should say. So we have just under 10 minutes. I should warn you that I can't remember her first name, but her last name is Chi. I believe she's with the Cheese restaurant.
Oh, yeah, I know.
She is looking for some photos of what that was like before Cheese was there. So I referred her to you.
There aren't any photos when it was originally a store, but only when Kelly Joseph had it, and it was called Kelly's on the Corner.
Yeah, a gas station.
No, it was, he had a little, a lunch counter and a pinball machine, and he fed all the high school students from Adams Memorial High School. That was a big teenage hangout. And he used to even cater to them. He had, he would put up the pictures of the graduating girls, photos of them on the backdrop, and he had a soda fountain, and it was a hot spot. It was a place to be, for a kid. I can't think of it. And his father's the one who actually started it. His father's name was Khalil, and he decided that Khalil's on the corner wasn't such a good idea, so he made himself Irish and called himself Kelly's on the Corner. There was a guy who used to live at the end of Pine Street I knew, whose name, people used to call him Abu. And they called him Abu because when he was in high school, he used to work for Khalil making candies. He was, I'm not sure what kind of candies he made, but I don't think it was fudge. It was something else. They called him just because he worked for a Lebanese and Arab man.
Neat story.
And, but there was, that building goes back. In fact, if you look up at the top, way up at the top, there is it's not a cornerstone, it's a memorial stone, and it says S.E. Dean, and I think it says something like 1867 or 63 is when that building was put there, and it was a dry goods store. And we just received from Martha Stolman an accounts book from that place when it was called Carswell and Reading, Carswell and... Anyhow, they had a dry goods store there in that location. And it also is interesting because it has a stepped gable. You know, the step. There's a few. There's a few buildings in Adams. I have two buildings in Adams. There's one on Park Street, and there's also one in Williamstown on Main Street that has that stepped gable. And I always thought it was maybe an influence from from New York State, that there was I don't know who came up with the idea to have as opposed to the triangular gable, you know, so out of brick. So interesting building.
Neato. Well, I am very I needed to use a different voice for this. I am very disappointed in you that you've been watching this show and you have not called in to take a guess about the photo behind us. It's a good thing for you I don't know where you live, because otherwise I'd be calling on you later tonight, and you would not be happy to see me. So there. So, Joanne, if you would please put the photo in front of us.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about the photo.
Yeah, you're gonna kick yourself for not guessing this. And if you don't, give me a call and I'll come and kick you. This is the very first photo taken in the Drury High School gymnasium. It was taken in 1917, and this is the girls' gym class. What sleek clothing they had for gym class.
Do you remember the gym clothes the girls our age had to wear in gym class? They all hated it.
No.
I know they were like shorts with puffy stuff, and they were, I think they were onesies, actually. But I know all the girls hated them. But that only was, I think, in junior high. By high school, I think they probably got rid of them. But look at these guys, they have big bows, and at least they didn't have to wear dresses. Those must be like bloomers that they're wearing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Or at least very loose shorts that bunched at the knee.
Are you familiar with the history of bloomers? Some of Susan B. Anthony's and that crowd invented them. They were sort of to eliminate the restriction of a dress, and that they still had pant legs. And some of the women were wearing them, and the men were making fun of them. They were dressing like men with sort of pants, but they weren't really like tight-fitting like pants. So the first jury was built, what, in the 1840s? Do you know the history when Nathan Drury gave the money to?
Around there. And by the 1860s, it was outdated and overcrowded, and so it was torn down. In order to build that one, they had to cut the hill down 17 feet to get a space big enough. And so when they tore down that one, they had to cut the hill down another 17 feet. And they built this, which it was a second empire. So it had a mansard roof, and it actually had a
Great
clock tower on it.
I remember the
And then later on, they put on an addition in the back. And by the turn of the century, this was also becoming outdated and overcrowded. And long about, I think it was 1913, they began construction of the first actual Drury High School. Because up until then, it was always Drury Academy.
So how many, all the grades were in there, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Even in the original building, they did not have a set curriculum, and there was no real advancing from one year to another. And so finally, the town was brought in, and It'll come to me after the show, folks.
But Horace Mann was sort of the education czar here in Massachusetts, and he came up with a graded system as opposed to the one school system. And that's when they built the academy in Adams, and they probably built the jury academy at the same time. And then they started putting kids through
the Jury
grades.
Academy Mark II.
So,
But
and that's also when, I think in 1850s, they required that you had to have a high school, but we had a high school, but nobody went to it.
It was K through 12. And when they decided to go with the Drury High School, they gutted this building and it became the gymnasium. And you see the track around the outside, that connected with a door that went into the main building so people could get to the part in the back without messing up a gym class. And this photo was, put us back on, please, Joanne. Thank you. So they saw their first graduating class in 1917, when the school actually opened for the first time. And one of the really cool things about Drury Academy, the first year that they actually had a graduation, if there was a valedictory address, it was delivered by the entire graduating class, Miss Christina Benson. She was the only graduate.
Oh.
So, hey, that's the end of our show. Thank you for joining us. Yes, both of you. Thank you, Joanne, for directing. Thank you for being here, my old friend. And we will see you in 2 weeks. I believe it's May 3rd. May 3rd, here on Porch Talk.
I'll put it on my calendar. Bye.